It's Brett Hanson's turn to share his financial views and insights. How are you doing, Brett?
Yeah, I'm doing good, thanks, Howard.
Always nice to catch up. Mind you, it's busy.
It is. Busy and hot.
Yes. Well, this week and next we'll be discussing a hot topic. What does the new UK Prime Minister and Chancellor mean for tax? Will taxes go up, come down, or we'll see a mixture of both? So, Brett, Andy Burnham is the 7th UK Prime Minister in a decade. His Chancellor of the Exchequer, John Healey, recently resigned as Defence Secretary, but has past experience at the Treasury. What sort of economy have they inherited from previous administrations?
Well, Howard, I would say they've inherited an economy that's certainly in a more stable position than what it was a few years ago. But there are still some significant challenges ahead. Inflation has come down from the highs we experienced after the pandemic and energy crisis, but economic growth remains fairly subdued, government borrowing is high, and there's continued pressure to increase spending on public services, infrastructure, and defence. As you quite rightly pointed out, the new Chancellor of the Exchequer, John Healey, quit his role as Defence Secretary just over a month ago on the basis that he felt the Treasury was not spending enough on defence. Now, it will be his responsibility to find the money for this and a number of other areas in need of more spending. That means the new Chancellor faces a difficult balancing act. He will want to encourage economic growth while also demonstrate that the public finances remain under control. History tells us, Howard, that when governments are looking for additional revenue, the tax system normally comes under scrutiny. And for British expatriates living in Spain, it's easy to think UK budgets become less relevant once you've moved abroad. But that's rarely the case. Many people still own UK property and have UK pensions. They may also remain within the scope of UK inheritance tax. So decisions made in Westminster can still have a significant impact on their long-term financial planning.
Let's look at some of the key taxes and the clues that we've had so far about possible reforms. Starting with income tax. Do you think Burnham and Healey are likely to make changes to income tax rates or those thresholds?
I'd be surprised if we saw dramatic increases in the headline rates of income tax. Raising rates is politically very visible, and governments often look for, let's say, less obvious ways of increasing tax revenues. We've already seen the effects of what's known as fiscal drag, where tax thresholds remain frozen while wages gradually increase. As incomes rise, more people are pulled into higher tax bands without any change to the actual tax rates. It's a very effective way of increasing revenue without announcing a tax rise. Whether that policy continues remains to be seen, but it's certainly one of the options available. For expatriates in Spain, income planning is often more complicated because many receive income from several sources, perhaps the UK state pension, private pensions, rental income, or investment income. Although Spanish residents are generally taxed on their worldwide income in Spain, UK tax rules can still affect how the income is paid or taxed before double taxation relief can be applied. That's why regular reviews are so important, Howard, to ensure your income is structured as efficiently as possible.
What about capital gains tax? Is this an area where you see reform or revenue-raising measures being introduced?
Capital gains tax is certainly one of the areas that governments often revisit when looking to raise additional revenue. We've already seen annual exemptions reduce quite significantly over recent years, meaning more investors now pay tax on gains that previously would have been covered by the allowance. Could rates or reliefs change again? It's certainly possible, Howard. There has been a recurring speculation that future governments could seek closer alignment between capital gains tax rates and income tax rates. Such a move would increase the tax burden on many investors and business owners, but could potentially raise substantial revenue for the Treasury. Governments always have to strike a balance between encouraging investment and generating revenue for the Treasury. For British expatriates, capital gains tax is an area where planning becomes particularly important, especially when moving to Spain, because you're often dealing with two different tax systems. Spain doesn't always tax gains in exactly the same way as the UK, and the timing of a disposal and the move to Spain can sometimes make a considerable difference to the overall tax outcome.
Ever since Labour looked likely to win the 2024 general election, there's been speculation about a possible wealth tax. Do you think those discussions will continue? And how likely do you believe that such a tax would be?
Yes, I think the debate will certainly continue because governments across the world are under increasing pressure to raise revenue while addressing concerns about fairness in the tax system. We've also seen the likes of Gary Stevenson, a former financial trader and until recently a YouTuber, campaign strongly for a wealth tax, which has certainly received plenty of media coverage and debate. But whether the UK actually introduces a completely new wealth tax is another matter. Wealth taxes are often much more complicated than they first appear, valuing assets fairly, deciding what should be included, and administering the system can prove challenging. Historically, Howard, governments have often preferred to adjust existing taxes rather than create entirely new ones. Of course, for listeners here in Spain, wealth taxation is already a familiar topic because certain regions have wealth tax and solidarity tax rules. That doesn't necessarily mean that the UK will adopt the same approach, but it does highlight how important it is for internationally mobile families to consider both tax systems together rather than looking at each country in isolation.
Finally for this week, Brett, let's turn to pensions. Do you have any concerns about potential changes? And what would you most like the new leadership to do when it comes to pension policy?
My biggest concern is probably the uncertainty around pensions rather than any one specific policy. Retirement planning takes place over decades, so frequent changes to pension legislation, Howard, make it much more difficult for people to plan confidently. We've already seen a number of important pension reforms over recent years, and more changes are always possible. Personally, I'd like to see a period of stability where people understand the rules and can make long-term decisions with confidence. For British expatriates, historically pension funds have been one of the most valuable assets they own, with regards to generating an income and passing on assets to their beneficiaries free of UK inheritance tax. Both UK and Spanish tax rules influence how retirement income and wealth distribution is received, so a pension arrangement that was appropriate when someone first moved to Spain may no longer be the most efficient solution today, especially with pension funds being included for UK inheritance tax calculations from April next year. Rather than reacting to every budget announcement, I encourage people to review their retirement strategy regularly. Small adjustments made over time are often far more effective than waiting until major changes have already taken effect.
And how about the triple lock? Is that set to be changed?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, to get rid of it, it's not a vote winner, but at the same time, it does cost the taxpayer a lot of money each year. So logically, you would say that something's got to give at some point.
Thanks, Brett, for sharing your thoughts on this important subject. Next week, we'll take a closer look at inheritance tax, as it's such an important area for many families. In the meantime, how can listeners get in touch with Blevins Franks?
The easiest way, Howard, is to visit our website, blevinsfranks.com, where you'll find a wide range of articles and guides on UK and Spanish taxation, pensions, and cross-border financial planning. Alternatively, you can arrange a meeting with one of our advisors here in Spain. Every family's circumstances are unique, so taking personalised advice is often the best way to ensure your financial planning continues to meet your objectives as tax rules evolve.
Many thanks. Until next week.